Are you sure you're ready for departure? Well, before we answer that question, let's go through some steps and processes that every crew should take before going out flying. And some of these will actually surprise you. So stick around and we'll see. Welcome back, Diana here, Logan Aviation, and in this episode it's quite important. We're talking about safety, regulations, instructions, manual procedures, and this is important for all of us. But before we go through it or we dive into it, you get to see those, don't forget to follow us on social media, visit our website, and leave the comments. So whenever an aircraft manufacturer gets up in the idea of designing an aircraft and put it up flying, they go through several steps. They collect a lot of data before they put the aircraft up in the air. Whenever they finish with that, they translate that into manuals, instructions, procedures. And whoever is involved on that aircraft that it's up for us to enjoy up in the air should become very familiar with those procedures. That's the whole idea of having all those manuals and making it accessible for us. So the flight crew becomes very familiar with those manuals, and also we need to translate that very tough into the flight crew as far as also the maintenance crew, the ground support. And we're gonna see that through the history of the aviation. And as you can see, the flight of Alaska back in 2000, so the well-known Alaska 261, and it crashed in the Pacific Ocean, and it had something to do with the maintenance crew. The flight Alaska 261 back in 2000, it lost control up in the air in the Pacific Ocean. And the flight crew actually tried to put the aircraft in control very quickly. They actually tried to land at LAX, at Los Angeles. However, timing didn't make it. Now, what ended up happening is that the problem started back in the ground from the maintenance procedure from a long time ago. So let's start from what really happened based on the NTSB report and what we can learn right now as we operate those modern aircraft of today's 2025. The aircraft manufacturer indicated it that a JATS crew that works with the movement of the horizontal stabilizer in the tail of the aircraft, it needed to be lubricated every certain amount of time. And the purpose of that is that the mechanism of the wear and tear, it diminishes when it's well lubricated after a certain amount of time. However, when they ended up going through the C-check, which we talked about this certain episodes ago, I think it was 2 episodes ago, and we were indicating that the A and B, they're daily operational checks, but when it comes to C and D checks, they're very in-depth maintenance tasks. Well, few months ago, the JATS crew, it was part of the C-check, and it indicated that it needed to be inspected, lubricated. Now, when the NTSB report coming in to see when was the last task that it was on that section of the aircraft, it indicated that the mechanic used 1 hour of his time to do this tasks. Now, we compare that to the manufacturer tasks, and they indicated that it usually takes 4 man-hours to do these tasks. Right there, we have a 3-hour difference. Most likely, the procedure that they were doing, it was slightly off from what the manufacturer indicated. From that point on, we all know what really happened. They were not doing the procedure as they needed it to do. And what we learned that right now is that the importance of following those procedures, reading the manuals, and going in depth of what they ask for each individual tasks is very important. The FAA is also trying to make a big effort into that every mechanic, whoever is touching the aircraft, is to be able to have a reference document from they were doing that inspection from or that tasks from. So it is a manufacturer reference. It's a very important task. Whatever minimum job it is a job, and it's actually people up in the air. The next one that I want to mention is a Gulfstream 4 SP back in December 15 in 2021, and it was carrying a music producer and music artists, and that was determined to be a maintenance error. What happened in this case, it was the hydraulic lines of the right wing it were incorrectly connected, making it backwards the spoiler actuator. What ended up happening is that they diverted to a closer airport, but they did not make it. And in that case, it was very well and very easy or simplest investigation for the NTSB, for the local agency to determine that, because there were security lines that show when the airport was up in the ground and they were seeing the spoilers working in the opposite way. So there you have it. It is also a maintenance issue. It's also the fact that we need to read those maintenance instructions, those checklists, going through those procedures. They're very important. The last one that I want to mention is a Hawker 900 XP, and it was February of 2024, over a year. However, the report is not available right away. The NTSB has not determined the probable cost of that crash. But what we could see, it was a very particular, a very important task. And this involved the maintenance crew and the flight crew. What we suspect right now is that there was a loss to control, and it had to do because the aircraft was in a maintenance tasks that a well-known company was performing those maintenance checks. And by the aircraft manufacturer, they require an stall warning system flight tests that they needed to check that the leading edge, it was correctly installed and that everything was working correctly. Now, let's leave the maintenance crew behind and let's go towards now the flight crew. And with that procedure, it requires different parameters. It requires experience of the crew, of the flight crew. It requires weather, certain weather. That means that you need to have flight visibility. You also need to be at a certain level above the terrain, meaning sea level is different from above ground level. So different readings. They also need to have very well known of the aircraft, just because in case that something would have gone wrong with the aircraft, the flight crew will have the experience to take control of the aircraft and be able to maneuver it to take control of the aircraft. So as of today, we don't know. But on this case, we have both scenarios combined that we don't have the report yet. The aircraft is recently out of a maintenance check, and it was a very important, it was a heavy check. And then also you had the flight crew going up in the air to do the flight test, to make a procedure test advised by the manufacturer. So on that case, you have those two combined. There is a lot of human factor, but it requires a lot of reading before you go up in the air and do these tests. So as you can see, it takes some preparation before people maneuver the aircraft, before people touching the aircraft. So I advise and I totally recommend for people to continually train whoever is touching the aircraft, either up in the air or down on the ground. So thank you for watching. Please leave your comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.